It's hard to imagine life in the 21st century without electricity, but the fossil fuel used in electricity generation is expensive. It also contributes to climate change and adversely affects public health. Reducing our electricity consumption can also reduce the use of fossil fuel. As Guyanese, we can play a role by conserving on electricity in our homes, businesses, and communities. Energy efficiency leads to stable energy prices, savings on utilities, and it's good for the environment. To learn more, visit the Hinterland Electrification Company Incorporated online at www.electricity.gov.gy. This message is supported by the Ministry of Public Infrastructure, the Global Environment Facility, and the Inter-American Development Bank.
Hi there, good evening, and welcome to another edition of Talking About Renewable Energy. I'm Narissa Pearson, your host, and this time around we have a very special guest from a pretty important institution. And welcoming to Talking About Renewable Energy, none other than Amir Dilawar. Hello, good evening to you, Amir.
Hi, good evening, Marissa, and good evening to our viewers as well.
It's a pleasure to have you. Now, Amir, you're from Guyana Power and Light Incorporated. Tell us a little bit about yourself and your portfolio.
I am the Senior Projects Officer in the Project Management Department of the Guyana Power and Light Inc. Among project related duties, I also have the responsibility for the development and implementation of renewable energy systems into GPL's infrastructure.
Pretty interesting. Now, a lot of persons, when we would be talking about renewable energy, might think, how does GPL come into play in this regard? Because we've talked about efficiency and as well being lighter in our pockets in terms of paying and so forth and those rates. But what is the role, since GPL is a key player, of course, in electricity supply here in Guyana, with regard to renewable energy?
Well, it all goes back to our mission, and GPL's mission is to provide reliable, affordable, and quality energy services to our customers, to comply with all applicable regulations and standards, and safely and sustainably develop and operate our systems and develop the capabilities of our employees. So renewable energy and energy efficiency ties directly into sustainably developing our systems. So it is better for us as a utility to have energy sources that are cleaner and fuel that you don't need to pay for, basically. And that's what renewable energy does. Solar, wind, those are fuel sources that are available that we don't need to pay for us to convert into electricity.
And of course, the government of Guyana has a policy with regard to renewable energy and sustainable energy and development in our country. GPL is on board in that regard as well.
Correct. The government has a very clear policy and a position with respect to the green development and the President's vision for green development. And that extends into the electricity sector with renewable energy, and GPL is committed to working within that policy and delivering electricity to households and businesses that are green and clean. In that regard, we have developments taking place and plans that we are developing as well for particularly wind and solar. With regards to the wind project, there's a private developer that is working on delivering Guyana's first utility-scale wind park. And GPL has been working with that developer to make that a reality. The solar projects are more in-house. These are projects and concepts that GPL has been working on to deliver to their customers as a company. And we have some ambitious plans that we're trying to finalize. The idea is to introduce a solar energy facility, a utility-scale solar farm, in each of the systems that we operate. For the public's information, GPL operates a few systems, one being the Demerara-Berbice interconnected system that covers the Demerara-Berbice region. We also have the Essequibo Coast isolated system, which is the power system on the Essequibo Coast. We have what we call the individual isolated systems, which are the power systems on the islands of Leguan, Wikenam, and the power system in Bartica. So with regards to the DBIS, the Delmarva Arbor Base Interconnected System, the plan is to put 3 solar farms in place dispersed across the Delmarva Arbor Base region. These solar farms are going to be 10 megawatts peak capacity for a total of 30 megawatts of solar in the DBIS. Now, 30 megawatts of solar in the DBIS is a fairly large start. While on the international scene, you'll hear about 100 megawatts and 250 megawatts of solar projects in a single go. Guyana's power system is relatively small. And the DBIS, for example, has a peak of just about 115 megawatts. So 30 megawatts represents almost 20 to 30% of our peak. And that's a level of penetration, and that's a technical term that we use, that is relatively high. What that means is for variable renewable energy resources, the power isn't always there. The demand is still always there. So we would have to shore up these resources with some amount of what we call firm capability. So for each of these 3 projects, the intention is to install with them battery systems that are capable of smoothing out some aspect of that variability. So we're looking at 30 megawatts in the DBIS. On the Essequibo coast, it's a much smaller system. The day peak there is in the vicinity of 5 megawatts. And we're looking to install a 3 megawatt system there. Likewise, that is also a fairly high level of penetration for that small system. So we will be looking to install battery systems there as well to deal with the variability. Now, Bartica is being done by our colleagues over at the Guyana Energy Agency. And there's a project undergoing that will see solar farms being built across 3 of the new towns. And Bartica is one of those locations that will benefit from that. So the GEA is undertaking a 1.5 megawatt solar farm that will be working hand in hand with our new 3.3 megawatt power station that is currently being built in Bartica. The islands in particular, Leg 1 and Wakenham. For Wakenham, we have somewhat of a very, very ambitious project in mind. It's an initiative that came from our new CEO, and it's a project that we want to be, a model and a location that people from the region, the Caribbean region, can come and have a look at a system like this. The idea is that we want Wakenham to be powered as much as possible by renewable energy. Now, the reason why we decided that Wakenham is a good pilot to undertake is that the system is very small. So managing a small solar farm, relatively small solar farm, in such a small system is going to give us a good opportunity to conduct an assessment and a pilot for this type of system. The plan is that we would be replacing the Wakenham power plant with new sets, because that power plant is probably coming close to my age. And we would be putting in a 1.5 megawatt solar farm with 3.4 megawatt hours of battery storage. The idea here is to use the diesel sets as little as possible. And with this plan, we are projecting that in the first few years, we should be using those diesel sets only 15% of the time. So we're looking at a system where 85% of the time, the energy that is being served in the electricity sector is coming completely from solar and battery storage.
Wonderful. And just to put it into perspective, what is the current status with regard to that energy usage or supply in Wakenham?
It's 100% diesel. The power plant that is there is run off of diesel fuel. So it is 100% fossil fuel based. And the objective is to transition it as close as possible to 100% renewable energy. Now, the way the market behaves right now with regards to the cost of batteries, which is the key thing in enabling that 100% transition, because the renewable energy resource is not there all the time. The sun doesn't shine in the night, right? The prices of batteries are on the downward trend. And at this point, the closer you go to 100, there is almost an exponential increase in cost for the battery system to cover that period that you want to cover throughout the night. So we've tried as much as possible to optimize about a point that is a reasonable investment and still would be able to put a high level penetration system out there that we can pilot and study. Leg one, we would want to do the same thing in all of our isolated systems as we're doing we plan to do in Wakenham. But the idea is to do it in the small system first and learn from it, and then we would be able to replicate this much more confidently, because these systems are new to Guyana. So for leg one, the plan is at the moment to start with a relatively small solar farm for their load that is there, which is very, very small. It's like 400 kilowatts. So we'll probably put in a 400 kilowatt solar PV system to work with the existing power plant that's there with some amount of battery storage to make that a little bit more stable.
What is the current stage of these plans, which are really, yes, they're ambitious, but they're good plans when we talk about renewable energy and sustainable development for a country and looking at utilizing our natural resources? What is the current stage of those plans?
We have been working over the past quite a few months to finalize these projects, to put them into a stage where we have solid project documents that we can finance and move forward with on international tender stages. But as you can realize, and this is the thing the engineers would hold on to, these projects represent technical impacts that have to be assessed and that have to be properly planned. Because the last thing we want is to put systems onto our system that will further affect the reliability and our ability to deliver electricity to our consumers. And I'm pretty sure that that's the last thing that the consumers would want as well.
Of course,
Yeah.
of course. And one of the reasons we have this program talking about renewable energy is not just to raise the awareness with regard to renewable energy and to inform you, but also to effect change, hoping that you as the consumers out there will start to effect that change in your lives and start to support renewable energy in your own ways. And that is by getting a number of the technologies and products into your homes, your businesses, and generally into your lives or your communities, so that as the process begins or continues, especially with plans like we just heard that are happening at GPL, that you will be able to fit in and be able to transition smoothly. Speaking in that regard, though, Amir, what are some of the things, looking at this with regard to renewable technologies, what are some of the things that you think are important or necessary to invest in with regard to renewable energy and technologies?
For homeowners and businesses and industries as well, the cost of energy is probably, for a business and for an industry, one of the top ranking costs in their business model. So investing in renewable energy technologies is going to provide you with a greener and cleaner way to supplement your energy. And also is going to, if you look at the numbers correctly, offer you a cheap alternative and save on your energy bill. But there's a phrase in the energy sector, and that's energy efficiency before renewable energy, EE before RE. The thing is, renewable energy is variable, and most of them are variable, and the investment, the capital cost up front is not necessarily as small as you would expect. So what we would advise customers to do, and anyone, is you first look at improving the efficiency of your use of electricity. And by doing that, you're going to reduce the size of renewable energy system that you would need to install to maybe offset that energy consumption that you'll have. So implementing energy efficiency measures first and bringing everything into your operations to a point where you're using as minimum as possible amount of energy is the way to start. And there are very simple ways of doing this, and I'm sure these ideas would have been put out on this program before. Replacing your old incandescent lights and fluorescent lamps to LEDs, for example. For businesses in particular, where lighting is essential, supermarkets and stores, customers need to see what it is that they're buying. And reducing that aspect of your electricity consumption will have a strong impact on your final energy bill. Also, I want to encourage businesses and homeowners to look at the opportunity for you to include some amount of automation into your electricity system. And by this I mean simple things like putting in occupancy sensors in rooms and putting timers on your lights that are for security purposes, so that during the day at 10 o'clock your security lights, which are usually large and pull a lot of power, are not going to be on, because there's a timer there that says when it's 6 o'clock or when it's 7 o'clock then it's on, and when it's 6 in the morning it shuts off. Occupancy sensors would help you in ensuring that if there's nobody in the room, then there's no need for the light to be on. So these simple measures in your home and in your business go very far way of reducing your energy consumption, so that you are going to be able to now invest in maybe generating on-site with a grid-tie PV system, for example. And that investment is not going to have to be as large as it would have been if you had not put in any energy efficiency measures to begin with first. So EE before RE, that's the mantra.
I like that. Well, last time we were here live on talking about renewable energy, we were able to take some of your calls. This time we were unable to do that though, but we have gotten some of your questions that were sent in to us. So here's one of the pressing questions that we would have gotten about adopting renewable energy. It is what to do once you have generated enough energy to satisfy your needs and you have excess. Persons are inquiring in that regard. Maybe you can explain for them, Amir, what they can do in terms of that interim technical framework and what exactly that means.
So we would have published some advisories over the last few months, and one of those advisories would have advised our customers on the process and the requirements. We know that in keeping with the President's vision for a green Guyana, that people would want to invest in renewable energy technologies, particularly solar, because solar offers a very short project timeline in terms of implementing it, and the end result is very fast to get. So with your grid-tie systems, we're asking for some simple requirements. We want to ensure that the systems are safe. So we would need the system to be inspected by the Government Electrical Inspectorate, and you would need to submit that certificate of inspection to us. We also require an electrical one-line diagram for the system, which shows us the design that you're installing. And we ask that you write to us first, because we are allowing you to install these systems and grid-tie them with a particular capacity. The reason for this is renewable energy systems on your rooftop offers a different perspective on how traditional power systems are built. Traditional power systems have power coming from a generating station to a substation and then to the load. So power flows in that direction: generator, substation, load. When you install generating resources that are grid-tied on your own premises, the opportunity or the possibility of power flowing back to the substation exists. And that is something that a traditional power system was not designed for. So we ask you to write, say that this is the size of system that you want to install. We have a calculator that's on our website that allows you to put in 1 year's worth of your billed energy, and it is going to tell you this is how much we're allowing you to grid-tie. If you don't have 1 year's worth of energy available, then it's perfectly fine for you to write to our Divisional Director of Customer Services, that's at Main Street, and say that it is your intention that you want to install XYZ system of this size, and maybe supply at the same time whatever information you have on the system that you want to install. And then we would reply to you. So there are 3 requirements we look for. One is the electrical one-line diagram, as I mentioned before. 2 is the certificate of inspection from the Government Electrical Inspectorate. And 3, we ask that the inverters that you're using meet the IEEE 1547 regulations, which means that they would be listed under the UL 1741. What that means is that these inverters have something called anti-islanding protection. So once the grid is off,